Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. You know, there are people who are terrified of what the future might bring, and there are others who try to understand it. And that's what the black media attempts to do for you. When it comes to political elections, they do matter because these are the people who form policy. But as far as when it comes to presidential elections goes, there are some people who like living in fear, and the white media loves to play to that. They love to set up a horse race even if they can tell that there's already a leader. The entire point of an election, though, is not to have a particular candidate win. The point is to make sure that you win. And this is what we've been trying to effect at the black grassroots. The black vote is moving towards a major political realignment. It's not the first time, by the way. This has happened twice in the last 150 years. We were overdue for a third, especially with the current political climate that we've been suffering for the last 3 generations. Now, this new political realignment that's forming is going to take 2 distinct steps. First, a critical mass of black people are going to break the bad habit of voting for nothing, i.e. voting for the Democrats, or Republicans for that matter. Secondly, a politically motivated people are not simply going to be sitting at home forever. Abstaining from voting is actually an intermediate move between having made the wrong choice for so long and finally trying to make some good choices. People who are politically astute are going to use their self-interest in order to demand that they exercise influence over the policy. This is going to take the form of either figures from the currently existing political parties realizing the new reality and coming to terms with it, or it ends with us finding and fielding our own candidates. By the way, for that last one, that's an inevitability. We would have to do that no matter what occurs. Time and time again, these politicians are constantly hitting the reset button whenever they're trying to give themselves a political restart or trying to give themselves a fresh start to their old dingy campaigns. They try to hit the reset button, try to do something that gives them a clean slate. Well, that's what we're trying to do. And never before in the history of elections has any group of people been in such dire need of a fresh start. So what's the loyal opposition up to? Well, what we're seeing is the white left attempting to do a political realignment of their own. For them, this is about making open, blatant abuse of black voters the norm. When Obama was president, it was just him finger-wagging and lecturing us. Then in 2020, you had Jim Clyburn, America's favorite sharecropper, join in the abuse. And now it's Democrats, surrogates, flunkies, and shills across the spectrum who are doing it. This is a full court press. They're not just depending on one person to do it. Now they're all wanting to gang up on us. The Democrats are fond of saying that the Republicans are running not against the Democrats, but against democracy. Well, Democrats aren't running for democracy either because they take money from the same corporate interests as the GOP. The white media is flooding the zone with headlines saying that Kamala Harris has all but won the election, that it's going to be close, but that she's got it. However, in the event that this shapes up like 2016 and the orange man pulls off yet another upset win, then you can bet that there will be a foot race among disaffected Democrat constituents to see which one can claim credit for it. We should be fighting to make sure that that's us. Now, the Muslims, I can bet you, are going to be the very first ones clout chasing on this front. They'll be trying to say that they determined the winner of the election in Michigan, but they're wrong on both counts. First of all, you need more than just the state of Michigan to win a presidential election. And secondly, it's Detroit that decides the winner in Michigan anyway, not Dearborn. Those are facts. Accept it. But that's not going to stop the Muslim vote from trying to falsely claim credit for a Kamala defeat. The same way back in 2020, you had Andrew Yang falsely claiming that it was Asian voters who gave Democrats control of the Senate with the Georgia senatorial elections, even though Asians, like the Hispanics, have been continuing to break for Republicans, and there's not enough of them to make a substantive difference in Georgia anyway. But this is what you can expect to happen in the event that Kamala Harris loses. Expect to see a whole lot of folks trying to say, oh, that was us, and expect to see a whole bunch of phony headlines talking about the rising cloud of Muslim voters, the rising cloud of the Asian vote, etc., etc. Why? Because saying that the black vote did it, well, in that case, then you're going to have black voters who are basically flexing their muscles. And with this new awakening that the black media has brought about, that is not something the white media wants to acknowledge or encourage. Remember, they tried ignoring black men for the last 6 to 7 years. Black men have been drifting away from the Democratic Party and making it very clear. These guys aren't offering us anything, so what the hell do we look like offering them our votes? The white media tried to see if they could ignore us. That's what they tried to do. And expect to see the white media try to push that particular narrative that, oh, it wasn't the black vote, it was everybody else. Because as I said in last night's Sunday address, nothing that happens in the Middle East is going to affect white supremacy over here. And it's here that counts. This is about a desperate attempt to prop up the status quo narrative, to see if flooding the zone with a bunch of stories that are ignoring us will hopefully make us lose morale and make us lose interest. This is the reason why I tell you that we don't spend our time trying to figure out whether or not the white media is paying attention to us. They already hear us and they fear us. We need to be staying on our square and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Whether the white media acknowledges it or not, sure, this is confirmation of what we've been saying, that they've known what we've been doing all along, and they've been desperately trying to ignore us out of existence. The white media's usual conjuring magic. They just pretend to themselves that if they pretend you don't exist, then you don't. You'll disappear in due time, except we didn't. See, we were able to change the political discourse not by chasing the Democrats or looking to be liked. As I've always told you, if you want to be liked, then just say yes to everybody. Go ahead and be their doormat. They'll pretend to like you. But if you want to be respected, then you better start learning to say no. These politicians and political talk shows are talking about what the men are doing because we're not going along with the script. But the part that they don't mention is that there's more and more black women who have gotten on board with this. There's a double-headed dragon that's taking aim at these anti-black forces. They spent years ignoring what black men were doing and pretending to praise black women in the hopes that this would galvanize black female voters. But instead what's happened is their refusal to produce anything for black voters at all has made it where even black women are starting to drift away as well. This is a reality that they can't afford to admit to. But by the same token, as the numbers of disaffected black voters continues to rise, even with black women, they're going to have to admit to that reality. In fact, they've already started trying to whisper and tiptoe toward and say, well, this is kind of more of a general gender divide. Nah, not exactly. Well, there could be some age-related aspects here. Some of the younger generations, hell, even Roly-Poly Martin has to fess up to that one. The white media is stuck on the horns of a dilemma, but it's horns that we gored them on. They tried to ignore us, and that didn't work. They tried to trivialize us. That didn't work. They've been aggressively trying to mischaracterize our position for at least the last 4 years, and now they're doing blatant, open shaming tactics. And that's not going to work either. They've had no choice but to finally admit to the reality because we refuse to budge from our position. I've been telling you that they don't care about black women and never did. Their flimsy attempts to try to drive a gender wedge hasn't worked. The only reason that these Democrat shills were pretending to praise black women was because they thought that they could use empty praise and a pat on the head to manipulate black women into making sure that black men get back on the treadmill. That was the idea. It was a political bank shot. If black men are not going to be fooled back into a process that offers us nothing, then go ahead and heap some extra praise on black women and see if you can sucker them into doing the white media's dirty work for them. But it didn't work. Magic Johnson came right out and admitted it. Michelle Obama was explicitly clear when she was saying that women, as she talking about black women, need to nag every black man in their lives. And notice what she said. Michelle didn't say, talk to your husband or boyfriend. She said, talk to the men in your life. That means all of them. That means boyfriends, sons, fathers, husbands, uncles, nephews, the dude up the block, whatever men you work at the job, at the church, wherever. Now, the fact that the Democrats felt the need to be that specific, that black women need to start nagging men, and they didn't even bother to make a similar appeal to men. They didn't say, well, you know what? Any of you men out there who actually understand how important abortion is, that abortion is all that matters, if you got some woman out there who's not so sure, you need to talk to her. They didn't do that. That tells you everything you need to know about just how much things have changed. This was not trying to praise black women. This was a last-ditch, half-baked attempt at trying to prop up the sister girl routine. But it ain't working. Black women are not stupid. They're not falling for it. We are not investing in whomever wins the election. That's why you don't see me sitting here trying to play Nostradamus and tell you who it is who's going to win. We've got our own agenda. We're not looking for a leader, and that includes a political one. We've already got a leader of our own, the Code, and we don't allow any election to supersede or influence that. The next step that needs to occur is for the black grassroots, those who identify as FBA in specific or even as Black First in general, to begin the process of moving into the political arena. It doesn't have to be a run for Congress or the Senate, obviously, but we already know that we can't trust anyone but each other. So at some point, we're going to have to begin getting our hands on the levers of policy. Since we can't find any politicians who are willing to openly and aggressively demand reparations, we're going to create politicians who will. That means we choose people from our own ranks, people that we know that we can trust. The entire reason that you got so many people out there who are chewing their fingernails and sweating bullets about the outcome of this election is because they didn't choose either one of the candidates. So they're just blindly hoping that one of them will do something for them. But that's very different than what the rich do. Whether it be the Elon Musks, the Blackstones, the George Soroses, etc., they're not sweating the outcome of this election at all, because they know that politics is the continuation of warfare by alternative means. And since politics is war, how do you guarantee that you win a war? By funding both sides. This is what the rich do. Now, in our current condition, we're not in their position, but we do have something they don't have, and that's superior numbers. Doesn't matter how many billions Elon Musk has, doesn't matter how much money George Soros has. At the end of the day, each one of those white men only constitutes one vote. Our organized numbers are far more important. It reminds me of something H. Rap Brown said over 50 years ago. He said the enemy, talking about these white supremacists, do not have black people so much outgunned as they've got us out-organized. That's the next hurdle that needs to be vaulted. So that's what we're going to do. The task before us now is to set in motion a new political dynamic, one whose entire purpose is to produce justice. And what does justice mean? Well, in political terms, it means that no matter who loses the election, we make sure that we win. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. DPB79, Antonio Daniels, Amir Miller, Miss Debbie, and G. Mars. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.